Welcome into a Thursday edition of the Mad Monday podcast, as always brought to you by 4 and 20 Pies, the perfect at-home snack for watching rugby league. The Mad Monday Munters group is live on Facebook, and it is a flutter, Adam Pormana, because James Fisher-Harris has signed to the One New Zealand Warriors from next year for 4 years, which is very exciting for me. I look at it thusly. When he comes over, he'll be 29, I'll be 33. Which means until I'm 37, the Warriors will be good. That's the way I'm looking at it.
And what a good time that would be. I don't think you're alone in this as well, because it's a crazy, crazy time, because you think that that'll be back-to-back seasons with massive signings. To think how excited everyone was with just RTS himself. And then we've just gone absolutely boom in the last day as well. It is... Oh, mate, you already can't buy tickets. What's it going to be like next year? You're going to have to book a month in advance.
Yeah, someone else was in the Mad Monday Munters group talking about, can anyone else get tickets to this Anzac Day game, which is tomorrow, Friday night. Myself and Chris Key on the call for that one. And it seems to me like it's another sellout. It's going to be pretty tough to get your hands on some tickets. That photo that someone copied and pasted, shout out to them, into the Mad Monday Munters group, Tony Jeffries it was, that's the most liked photo that's been into that group, and I think that's because that's a fair reflection of how the Warriors faithful feel about this. There's a lot of bandwagoners who are going, who is this guy? And you've got to be like, Kiwis captain, got boot, triple championship winner. Yes, he's from New Zealand, so blah, 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 blah. To try to explain to them, the Pinot Noirs of the world.
Well, that is actually a really good point, because this could be the difference between a real fan and the others, and this could be a really nice signifier that, say, you're watching the game in the weekend and you bring it up, this JFH guy, have you heard of him before?
Yeah,
it's a real easy way to kind of tell the people that have been here forever, and the bandwagoners,
the day ones. I saw in Matt and Jerry's Facebook page someone posted something about James Fisher-Harris, and they threw a C into Fisher, F-I-S-C-H-E-R, like very Pinot Noirs of them, very European of them to throw a little C in there. But anyway, James Fisher-Harris locked in for 4 years from next year. I said this on the Agenda podcast, and I don't want to regurgitate the same takes again, but we've got to sort this transfer system out in the NRL. We talked about it last year that there needs to be some sort of trade window, fair compensation for when players want to leave, because Adam Fanua-Blake was leaving with no guarantee that anyone was going to come back to us. And obviously, I don't think this ever really happens, but when you hear these announcements a year before, it'll be so easy in the locker room to just be like, oh, well, fuck, you're leaving anyway, so what do you care? If a guy has a bad season, say Lomax would have had every right to just mail it in for the last few weeks for the Dragons, but he hasn't. He's actually turned into a superstar. But I think the clearest example was Brandon Smith when he left the Melbourne Storm to go to Sydney. Like, that was a circus, an absolute sideshow, because he announced it on a podcast, this and that, and talked about how he always wanted to wear that jersey and that. It's like, how, if you're defending with that guy, surely in the back of your mind you're like, he doesn't care. He's going to the Sydney City Roosters next year. And
also, that is a ballsy move from the Cheese, because he's just saying that whilst he's in the team with Craig Bellamy, it could possibly be the worst situation. What we were watching the other week, it was the half saying, we had such a shocker, I am not going back into that changing room, so I'm not doing that. Do you reckon that with this as well, I can't remember where I've heard this take, and I'm not going to claim it as my own, but it's a real big signifier of like the likes of why we've got Capewell, and this is good quality players coming to a good team, and we don't have to convince them with money anymore. Obviously he's going to be paid a lot, but it's an amazing thing where imagine a proud Kiwi captain gets offered the thing, do you want to come back to your country? And for the country's only team, do you want to try and bring it home for the boys? That would be such a motivator, and it's credit to where they are at the moment, right?
Yeah, that's a massive part of it, is you no longer have to decide between competing for a championship and playing for New Zealand in terms of the Warriors rather than the Kiwis. You can now have your cake and eat it too, and I think it's so telling. Kurt Capewell, probably the biggest thing that he's going to do for the club is attract other players, particularly Australians. So the other part of this, though, is Andrew Webster. Because think of our biggest signings, obviously RTS, but Capewell, he was playing at the Panthers.
Correct.
James Fisher-Harris was playing at the Panthers. So don't be shocked if Nathan Cleary turns out for us next year.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because I don't know when I saw it come out last night, and because he's given this deal 2 years before his contract ends.
Yes,
there must be so much goodwill, and it's interesting that a team of that degree. But then it makes me wonder as well: is it the idea that there's a lot of people that need a lot of money next year, and is this a move as well? But there just seems to be, obviously, Webby as well, but him being the coach there as well. I wonder if it would have been as easy to get him to another club if the coach wasn't Webby.
Yeah, on the getting released out of your contract early, we talked about this when Ed and Whenua Blake did it to us, was that at the Warriors it's quite hard to attract Australians to come and play here. What we can't have is a perception that once you sign a contract here, you're absolutely stuck and that we're going to screw you over. Because all that's going to happen with certain players is they're just going to mail it in, or they're going to make it such a toxic environment that we say, Matt Lodge, bugger you, go off and play for someone else, but we'll still pay half your salary for some reason. I think that I don't really understand why the Panthers, they said, look, you've won us 3 titles. If anyone can tell us what they want to do and what they don't want to do, it's James Fisher-Harris, so we'll let you go. I don't know if I believe that or not. I'm sure they had their own. They probably couldn't compete with the amount of money that he was going to get offered, and maybe they thought with Luai going away, if they could clear that money off their books, they could maybe find someone else. Because they've lost a lot. Somebody posted on social media the full list of the Penrith Panthers that have left since they won their first championship of this run. And it's a formidable team. Now, they needed to relax because they had Sean O'Sullivan and Jack Hetherington on the bench, so I feel like they were really trying to stretch it a little bit, considering both those players were loaned to us Jack Hetherington was. Sean O'Sullivan's dad brought him over to the Warriors when we were in the doldrums, so they need to relax a little bit there. But, I just think that it's so hard to balance a team like the Panthers in a salary-capped era. You've got so many superstars who want to and deserve to get paid more. I wonder if they just wanted to redistribute that a little bit.
Yeah, no, and it makes sense, especially on the backside of where Penrith is right now, right? You can't say they're in a rebuild, but they're in a position where things are changing. People deserve the money as well, so it's kind of only fair. And on that, because of this amazing news of the transfer, what are we punting this week, mate? I can see this next up here.
You know, I love an omen. Omenry is a big part of my punting. James Fisher-Harris signing for the Warriors is great news for James Fisher-Harris. It's great news for the Warriors. And I think off the back of that, they're both going to be so buoyed that the Warriors are going to win tomorrow night. That's only paying $1.44, so the TAB agree with me there. I think James Fisher-Harris has a spring in his step. I think he crosses the chalk, and that will pay you $9. You multi those together, you put a $100 bonus bet on it. That will return $1,196. It's paying about 12s. I'm going to follow this one in myself on my own account. I would encourage people to gamble responsibly, but put the house on it. And I think it's written in the stars. $9 for James Fisher-Harris this week. It's just ridiculous. Someone needs to lose their job at the TAB. Anyway, that's our TAB game day. Good punt. Let's get into the team list preview. From the top, make it drop. That's some wet-ass team list. No changes to the starting lineup that runs out there this week from last week. The only changes on the bench, and that's because Jazz Tavanga has done his hammy. Initially, it seems like it could be quite bad. Just watching him on the ground at the game, it didn't look too good. So they've had to rejig it a little bit, and the bench reads thusly: Chanel Harris-Tavita, Tom Ali, Jacob Laban, who is really starting to earn his keep there on the bench. And then in at number 17, dear friend of the podcast, Adam Pompey. What's interesting to me is the reserves. Number 18, Zion Maiu, who I watched in the New South Wales Cup game before last week's game at the ground. He looks immense, and he looked great in the preseason. He is the only player in NRL history to be given a red card in a preseason match. I suspect, knowing how the Warriors operate, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw Zion make his debut this week, because they did this with Jakey Laban as well a few weeks ago. They name him at 18 or even 19 so that the media isn't asking after him the whole week. And then right on game day, they say, right, we're swapping Pompey or we're swapping Tom Ali or someone out. And then Zion makes his debut. If the TAB had a market on it, that would be my call. I reckon Zion's going to be debuting. Adam Pompey played almost every available minute of last season, And unfortunately for him, someone had to lose out when RTS came back. I don't know that he covers enough. Not a lot of teams carry a outside back on the bench. So I suspect Zion is going to slot into that team. As far as I am aware, if you look at the other side, Lomax moves into centre for Jack Bird, which he'll be happy about. That could impact his fantasy numbers. He has been an absolute Supercoach star this year. We'll get into that after the break. But that's the only change for them as well. I saw an article saying that our bench was thin this week. And I just wanted to mention, I don't want to gatekeep the bandwagon. There's always room, as far as I'm concerned, there's always room for more on the bandwagon. But our bench is far from thin. The fact that we've got a guy who played every single minute of last year named at 17. We've got, let me read you the reserves who aren't playing. Zion Mau, Tain Tuopiki, Ali Leatawa, Ed Cozzi, and Paul Roach, Nathaniel Roach's little brother. So you can't say that our bench is thin. We've got reserves ready to go.
Yeah, and that is, oh mate, that is something that we need so dearly right now, which is credit to the team. I think the depth, we've joked about it for ages. It's so needed. But even the fact of thinking that CHT wasn't around, all of a sudden he comes back, he's still an absolute weapon.
It's a necessity for us.
Yeah, and he is. And you can, it kind of proves more looking at it now why Tamari Martin walked straight back into 6.
Yeah.
Because we need that cover on the bench.
Yeah.
There is that necessity of him, and he just slots in, right? He can play up the middle.
Tamari?
CHT. He plugs a lot of gaps there, and that's the thing that Pompey doesn't have. So you're 100% right. And when you look at the other side, it's actually not too bad. Don't know who Jesse is, but Jack DeBell and Ben Murdoch Musila. It's considering that two of these guys, if Zion comes up behind Jacob, we could have two of our bench who are absolute weapons that are under 21s. That if he's anything like Laban has been in the first couple of weeks, we've got nothing to worry about.
No, he looks like an absolute wrecking ball. I'd love to see Ali Leatawa get his shot this year as well. He looked like a wrecking ball in the preseason too. So, excuse me, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to absolutely cough my lungs out. We'll be back to talk a bit of Supercoach. God, that was one of my favourite ads, Adam, that one. All right, let's get into some Supercoach. The buys. Who do you need to bring into your team? There's a couple of ways to look at your trades each week. This is the way I look at it. I only ever go one of two ways. I only ever go, who has to come into my team this week? Like who's going to make money or who's on a run or who's in my team that I have to get rid of. So who got injured, who got suspended, who's made their money and now I need to get off them before they start losing it. So those are that's the way I like to simplify it in my mind. So we'll go through our buys, sells, and our smokies here. I think the big buy for this week, everyone's on him. It's Angus Crichton. You said last week we should get on him. I said I wasn't convinced about the minutes. And then Satili Tuponua goes down with an injury, head knock, in almost like the first 3 minutes. But the interesting part was it was actually not even him that Crichton came on for, was it?
No, not at all. And the most painful part about this is I came in the next day and I was talking to a couple of guys in Hauraki that last Thursday night just butchered time. In the back of my head, I was thinking 10 o'clock. It's always 10 o'clock. It was bloody 10 too. And I've tried to make the trade after lockout and I was trying to get Tupanua out. And I'm violently tapping my phone being like, I must need an update. I must need something. And I just had to watch him go bang, and it was the most disappointing moment. But hey, it couldn't happen to a better person.
Well, look, Adam, you engaged the line,
Yeah.
and you've got to. You kept the line honest, and unfortunately, you got caught with the ball and dumped on your head. But I think I was saying, I think to Chris last week, I was like, I just don't believe in Crichton. This week, I'm all in. I'm all in on Crichton. I'm going to get on the mushy milkshakes in honour of him. I might even cut my ring finger off on one of my hands, because I believe in him that much. He looks like a jacked up Lord Farquaad. There's something ridiculous about the squareness of his jaw, the shape of his head. I believe wholesale in Crichton. And I think if you've got Hosking, Zach Hosking, jumping ahead to our drops because he's in my team, he's done his shoulder. They said they're going to reevaluate him in 2 weeks as to whether they need surgery or not. So that, to me, his break-even had also got a bit prohibitive. So it looks like he had stopped making money. He's out at least 2 weeks, and then what happens if they decide he needs surgery? Zach Hosking to Crichton, I think, is a pretty good move. Hosking's one of the most owned players in in Supercoach. So, yeah, for me, Crichton has to come in.
And he has a negative 22 break even, so jump on board.
He could end up being a keeper, or you could make a bunch of money. Maybe you figure a way to bring Haas in if he comes back. I don't know. Get Crichton in. The other one is specifically for me, and I don't know about anyone else, but a buy, if you didn't have Galvin, do you buy him this week? So obviously he was out with suspension last week. After this week, he makes a bit more money. I think he's still got a negative break even. He's only about $311,000. If you didn't have Galvin, do you think you do have him, eh?
Yeah, I got him the week that he got suspended. He's on a negative 43 break even, so there is a lot of money to get. But even if I didn't have him already and I've just kind of waited those weeks out, he's a buy, man.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that when I was watching the game when he was playing the Eels on his last game before suspension, he's the kind of player that when I was watching, I was like, he passes the eye test.
He does, eh?
He's a big lad.
He's huge.
He absolutely smoked Blaze down that left edge for one of the last try, I think, for the game.
Yeah.
And he looks good, and it just makes sense that a young guy in a team that's trying to find themselves is just given a run because he looks like he deserves it.
I think, you're so right about the eye test, because particularly guys like him, guys like Blaze Talangi, guys that are debuting, Jai Gray's another one, you're like, you know him as a fantasy, sometimes you know him as a super coach player, and you're like, oh, I know his stat profile, but I don't know how he goes. Then you see him. Sean Blaw was one of these, I literally only realised who Sean Blaw was like last week, which one of the, I was like, oh, that's Sean Blaw. I was like, oh, okay, he's in. So, yeah, I think Galvin's got to be in, not least of all because you could potentially make a fair bit of money off him, but you could also make money by trading down to him from whoever your half is, your 5'8". What I'm going to do is actually bin, so another drop just to jump ahead. Jack Bostock's in my team. He's in a lot of people's teams. He has more or less made his money. His break-even's in the 50s somewhere, which is about his average. And I don't think he all of a sudden becomes like a 70 average sort of player. So how I'm running this is I'm shipping him out, Galvin in, and then I'm moving Ethan Strange into centre wing while he's still got that designation. So that's one way that you can do it. If you're still holding on to like a Dom Young or one of those guys, or if you've got the hammer, you could probably move down to that as well.
So I guess this gets us into all of our sales. So
one quick more buy. Kale Iro, if you don't have him yet, the Sharks centre, 219,000. He's got a massive negative break even. Talakai has been moved to the bench, which signals big minutes and big job security for him.
And with him as well, I'm just looking at the app right now. Edo has this week alone 34,000 trades into teams.
Yeah.
That is a lot. The second behind him is Tamari Martin, just as an example.
Yeah.
Only 11,500. That is a pretty big difference there.
I think most people this week are going Crichton and old KO Sports. So, yeah, follow along if you want to as well. Sal's, Burbo did his hammy last week. We saw him limp off. Not only does Turbo have a history of hammies, but Burbo's got a history of hammies as well. And it was the same hammy that he's done before, so you can drop him. He was sort of already trending towards a drop anyway because he'd kind of made his money, but then they named him to start at centre, so it's like, oh, well, now hang on. He's going to be out for 3 weeks. I think you can bin him.
Yeah, I think massively, and I think as well with that, there was a little bit of a chance when the Schuster stuff kind of happened, and you were thinking the only person that was really looking like he was going to take him out of the team was Schuster.
Yeah.
Considering, he shat in his own bed there. So, it makes sense.
Yep. Hosking, we mentioned, blown shoulder. The hammer's done his hammy. I think in centre wing, there's so many superstars there that's where your money should be. Obviously fullbacks, you want to have 2 gun fullbacks, but then centre wing, you got Mulitalo, you got Val Holmes, you got like so many different cheapies as well, your Schillers, your Kale Edos as well. You don't need to be holding on to centre wings when they get injured, so I think that the hammer is probably a drop because you can't really afford to have $700,000 sitting in your centre wing position not scoring you points. So the hammer has to come in. We mentioned Bostock. He's made his money. I'm doing the Bostock out Strange to centre wing, and then there's a few different ways you can play it from there. It's a good little money maker. I'd probably hold on to Blaise Talangi at the moment.
Yeah,
he got named on the bench this week?
Yeah, I still have him. I think it's a bit tough for him as well, right? Because he had that breakout game. The second game he comes in, the Eels don't look like they're really firing as well every single game. So it must be pretty tricky being a young fella coming in and then trying to, make your mark and your second game in. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But the fact that you like what you're saying, that he's still on a bench, it means that there is a bit of trust there. It's just what's his position and will he get another shot? And he probably will. It's he's not really worth enough to worry about.
Nah.
But, like what you're saying, there's so many other injuries that he's just he could just be a slow burn for a couple of weeks. You just check on him from now and then.
I would say if your biggest issue in your Supercoach team is Blaise Talangi, then you're fine. You don't need to worry about it. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Smokey, for me, I don't mind Te Maire Martin. He is... obviously, he's got the full-time role for quite some time with Luke Metcalf being out with that broken leg. He went well last year. I think we're very quick to forget how well he was playing for the Warriors. He's a negative 55 break-even. He is slated to make around 100K this week. If you weren't going to go a superstar, like two superstar fullbacks, he is fullback eligible, which, I don't know, might work for your team if you need to rejig a few dudes around. I don't mind bringing him in at 5'8". I think he's at about 360K.
Yeah, that's right. And his break-even right now is around minus 59. And then if you think about what he scored in the last 2 weeks, he's just been on a heater, 98, 72. And then the next 3 games is where it becomes a little bit juicy, right? Because we have St. George, Gold Coast, and Newcastle. Yeah. So even if it is just you're padding out the next few weeks, there's plenty of... Mate, week to week, there's plenty of injuries as there are.
Yeah.
It does get a little bit harder after that, which we just need to be aware of. Where they go to Sydney, they might turn it around, and then we have Penrith in round 11. But there's still time to make it. And he looks all right.
Well, he's a good-looking fella.
Wow.
Well, I think if you're bringing him in, you're tossing up between him and Galvin. And yes, maybe our schedule looks great for the next 3 weeks, like you said. Then it gets a bit harder. If you play for the West Sydney Tigers, every game is hard for you. Correct. So that's sort of the trade-off that you're making. I think that he's a safer option than Lachlan Galvin, but I just think Lachlan Galvin's probably the sexier option statistically.
Yeah, and
not to look at.
And I know you're an avid watcher of the Wires, so if we say even the last 2 games, considering how much he's scored, I wouldn't say he's been the vocal point of the games, which is something that is kind of understated. Like, yeah, he's done his job. He's definitely set up a trial too.
But he's got more to give, you mean?
He's definitely got a lot more to give, because you think about the way, you were in the car last week, but SJ throws the pass out wide. SJ still wins the game, and this guy's just ticking away at a ridiculous knock.
Yeah.
And he's just doing the simple things extremely well as looking like a very, very handsome man.
Makes his tackles too.
Doesn't miss a tackle, for a little fella.
I don't see good-looking blokes making too many tackles like that. I point to Jack Trebojevic, Your Honour, for leading tackle makers. A couple more smokies. These are just my thoughts. If you really wanted to throw a cat among the pigeons, if you really wanted to try and make a game-winning manoeuvre, I wouldn't be opposed to picking up Fafita. If you were like, I'm going gangbusters, I think Fafita's coming back, I wouldn't. I'll be honest, I've had him in my team for a cup of coffee this week, rolled back my team, went again. I think the only problem is Crichton's 300 grand cheaper and going to make money. But I do think that Fafita's one of those few forwards that can ton up.
Yeah, very easily.
And a lot of people would be scared off.
Yeah, no, massively. Last year he was doing it seemed very frequently. And then I think all he needs is really for that team to have enough of their stars playing week to week. Like, it only takes maybe Foreign to be back and, another weapon for that Gold Coast team in order for them just to click a little bit more, because I think at the moment he seems to be overplaying his hand because he needs to. And, he's far too good to have a slump for too long. I've got a little cheeky one for you, which I see as well. I see there's a lot of interest in Bronson Sherry?
Yeah,
Zeri?
Sherry. Yeah, I like this. I liked it to start the season. I wanted to bring him in. His starting price is a little too high for me, but I like it too.
Yeah.
So the people were saying, what did he score on the weekends? Like 80 something?
87.
87, and people were saying, oh, that's only because the Fox went crazy outside him and he had all these like line break assists and try assists. I think he only assisted on one of those. So the Fox just went crazy, completely unrelated to Bronson Xerri. I think we're very quick to forget, because he's been out of the game for so long, that this guy was probably the fastest player in the league. So you now may have the two fastest players in the league on the same side for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and most of his points, when I'm looking from last week, are line breaks. So it's him breaking the line. Yeah, obviously, I think he has one try assist.
Yeah.
But it's line breaks. So that's something he's going to do week to week, right?
And he was an absolute superstar at the Sharks. We forget about this. He was, like I said, lightning quick. He's put on a few pounds over the last few years while he was serving a suspension for doing steroids. Don't look too deep into that. Maybe he's reaping the benefits now. Who knows? I don't mind that. What's he worth? 470?
He's only 340.
340.
Yeah, so hey, maybe it's time to make a few changes and we go sit back down at the desk, or at least evaluate them, just more thoroughly, just in case, because that's not bad eating.
Yeah.
It's not bad eating.
So between now and, we're recording at 1:20, so between now and 9:50 tonight, good luck making your trades, reversing your trades, making your trades again, reversing your trades. Don't outthink yourself. Don't get caught taking it too deep into the line like Adam. Enjoy the commentary tomorrow night, myself and Keezy, 8 p.m. on Sky Sport 9. And other than that, we'll see you on Monday for another episode of the Mad Monday podcast.
An Australia without rugby league. An Australia